Thank you for staying with us on the program this morning. I'm joined by two gentlemen. Quickly, I want to introduce them. But first, I want us to realize that this discussion will be interactive. That means at some point, we will open our phone lines for you, so you can lend your voice to the conversation. However, we strongly recommend that we do not use this as a medium to cast aspersion or sling mud. Just stay on the issues and let's make sense of the discussion this morning. From my immediate left is Barrister Chima Williams, apparently a lawyer as well as a public commentator. It's always a delight to have you in the program.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Okay, next to him is a politician and an economist, Honorable Fred Oyugwe. Fred, thank you as well. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Good morning to you, viewers.
Fred, I want to start with you. Off the top of my head, when you look at politics in this country, violence appears to be a feature that is regular. It's been like that since '99, unless, of course, a lot of persons want to argue about the degree of violence that comes with each election cycle. But overall, elections are always violent in Nigeria. It will appear we've been doing not more than paying lip service to this monster.
Well, let me say that there has been improvement actually.
Okay, steady improvement.
Yes, there has been a steady improvement over the years. It has been less violent, so to speak. And that is because the voters are becoming much more aware of the process and the essence of the exercise, democracy. They know it's an opportunity for them to be able to express themselves, to lend their voice to how they are governed. And so those who used to participate in it have faded into the background. But there are still some who are there who believe that they can hijack the process. And I want to say that it's unfortunate that some people still hold such views. But the electorate is becoming much more resistant to such ideas and views. What the people want is peace, and that is what we want. Talking about Edo State in particular, we have relatively had peaceful elections, relatively. There have been minor pockets of violence here and there, but it's been really minor. And much as it has been in the news and social media that there are those threatening violence in the forthcoming election, I am confident that the next election is going to be very peaceful, like it has always been.
I'm not going to be here to counter your confidence, yes. but people say, look, evidently elections in Nigeria, just like it is in most parts of the world, are not cheap. Yes. So most times politicians go to whatever length to source for funds to be able to power their campaigns and other initiatives towards winning an election, for example. And then you also have those who become desperate for apparent reasons, just to be able to get into office, whether as a president, as a governor, as a senator, or member of House of Reps, for example. And then you see these people bringing talks, arming talks, and doing all what's not. Isn't that a problem that we need to be addressing from a systemic point of view?
Of course, we need to address it because like you have rightly identified, it's an issue that destabilizes the economy, destabilizes the function of the system. And nobody prospers, nobody makes progress in the face of instability, especially security instability. And we see that in other parts of the nation as it is right now. Religious-wise, and then when election cycles come around, we see more of it because, like you have rightly identified too, sometimes out of the desperation of certain politicians. But nonetheless, we have had a police force that has been able to conduct themselves with some degree of impartiality. Okay, they have been able to some reasonable extent, maintain peace, and we need to support the police in that process, and to provide information to them. What needs to be done It's not only to be able to respond to situations, but to also proactively plan to prevent violence or criminal activities. And all that will depend on how much information the police has. So that's where we come in as citizens, to be able to inform the police, let the police know that such and such could be flashpoints that they must be vigilant about. It is heartwarming that the police recently, it was all over social media, invited some people that they believed were threatening fire and brimstone to let them know that, look, they are on top of this game and that they will not tolerate any form of violence. I'll tell you something that, or a strategy that used to be employed back when I was a youth. Back then, a lot of people did not have arms like they have today and didn't engage in armed robberies and armed attacks and all of that. So it was mainly the use of basic tools, machetes and other form of such crude tools, right, that were used at the time, burglaries and all that. But what known families did that were victims of such invasions at the time was to pick all those known criminals. If you go to the police or the police force today, you will be aware that they know these criminals because they are recidivists. They repeat the same crimes. So they know them. And in situations like this, when one crime is committed, like we used to do back in those days when I was a kid, like I saw my parents do, they will arrest all the known criminals in the area. And when all are arrested, then the ones who did not participate in the particular crime will now be forced to tell on the ones that did, because they don't want to suffer for the crimes.
Just so they can be let off.
Yeah, so they can be let off because they did not participate, and nobody wants to suffer for the crimes of another.
Right.
Okay? And when you do that on a repeated basis, you wear them out. You wear them out. And when they become weary of that, and when they are worn out, you see that they begin to leave criminality. It's a strategy that works. So whenever there is crime, and you have a database of criminals, just go out, get all of them, round them up, lock them up, and tell them about the crime that you are working on, and let them tell you what they know about it. And you'll be amazed what information you will get.
Fred, what you have proposed now, I mean, making reference to what it was like back in the day,
yes,
it's brilliant and laudable. But let me talk to Chima quickly. It's not as easy as we say. That's what many people will tell you. Yeah. When you look at the whole system today, there are people who believe strongly that they are powerful politicians with clouds and a lot of money in their pockets who are backing up these thugs. Therefore, it makes it almost impossible for you to run circles around them. Is our system wired in such a way that we can win the war against thuggery, political thuggery in particular?
Well, you see, society don't grow because there are no dissidents, or criminality is not exterminated from societal practices because people overnight, become disgusted with their yesteryear lifestyles. Criminal-minded intentions will continue to grow politically, whether we like it or not. So what puts the system at par are the rules that are set out, if you like, rules of engagement for each circle of activity. And that is where proactiveness comes in, okay? You are futuristic, but you must use today's experience to build on tomorrow. And this is where, for some of us, no matter how we preach, I want to applaud the Omonoba who is a proactive leader, okay, for reaching out to the top-notch politicians whose words, body languages, actions and inactions
have inflamed,
can inflame the society. Okay? Because let's look at it. If the criminal-minded people do not have patronages, I doubt if anybody will want to just go and kill for another who does not know his intentions and will not, benefit anything from such conduct. It wouldn't happen because such people are not mad people. So they know either it is a context for supremacy, and that supremacy context is targeted at being noticed and being engaged. And this is where I think proactively, because like my brother mentioned, if we begin to disaggregate it, we won't get anywhere, because what happens in Kano affects people in Benin. Because anyhow we look at it, we are one way or the other interconnected. So if Edo had been relatively peaceful politically, can we say that of Rivers, for instance?
Or Kogi.
Or Kogi. Okay, so it is the aggregation of our political life that gives us a stand as to where we are in this context. So if we still have pockets of violence, at different stratas and levels of the Nigerian society, we cannot say that we've made any serious progress. Because let's look at it, if we begin to calculate, when you say it's less, take the proportionate. What was the population, for instance, of those that participated in the previous, if you are taking your indices and indicators? And then what is the population of today? If we had a population of 200 million people and 20 million was involved in violence activities politically, in, say, 2016 election in Edo State, and this is 2020.
4 years down the line.
Yeah, we have a population of 300,000 million. And then you get maybe 30,000 getting involved. It's still the same thing.
Ultimately,
it's still the same thing. There is no decrease. Okay? So the point here is that for some of us, we have to look at our legal regime. What does our laws say? What is the implementation practice, application of those laws to this particular issue? We know that we have our criminal codes, criminal law, that regulates crimes and criminal activities. We equally know that we have our electoral laws that gives guidelines for what constitutes an electoral offense and the rest of it.
And the law is clear on these issues.
Yes. Now, but they are loopholes because the laws that we have target the individual perpetrators. Okay? I want to see our law, whether electoral act, makes provision that, for instance, if we record a certain percentage of violent conduct across the electoral sphere, be it a national federal election for presidency, be it a state election for governors, be it a zonal election for senators, or
or even by elections.
Even by elections. So if we get reports of certain percentage of violence, it doesn't matter where it happens, but provided it happens within...
And we're able to establish it.
Yes, we're able to establish it before, during, and after, immediately after the elections, then such elections will be nullified. Because this will affect the actors now.
But that comes at the cost. To even taxpayers, for example.
Exactly,
yes.
Exactly.
Because INEC will have to go back to its coffers to refund this election.
I agree. If you have systems operate to address challenges. You know, for us in environment sector, you know, there is what we call polluter pay principle. Okay? If you make it that if such an election is cancelled, okay, the actors, now you are not singling anybody out to say it is party A or party B, because in that you may be creating a dangerous precedent where party A, you know, gaps itself as party B to perpetrate, you know, the act, so that party B will be punished. But if you say that all the actors who are involved will pay for the conduction of the elections, of course, you will weed out people, and that will create a situation where, look, all this one we are talking of, you know, the focal persons of these elections, the candidates, you know, talk to your people, supporters. That is when they will really talk to their supporters. I have been in this game. I have contested election, you know, way back. And I know what I did with my own supporters. I had to address them and tell them, look, if you do anything that is against the law and you are caught, I will deny you, you were not working for me. My own, it should be issue-based. Tell the people what you have to offer them and explain to them, let them understand what you have done in the past, no matter how little, you know, sphere you have played, which will now give them the confidence to believe that if they entrust this bigger responsibility to you, you are able to deliver. Stop attacking your opponents, because that is where the crisis comes from. By the time you leave telling the people what you can do, what you have done, what, you know, strategies that you are bringing that is going to be different from what is present, whether you are an incumbent or you want to unseat the incumbent, if you are not able to tell the people like this, and you are busy attacking yourselves, because that is the norm, and this is what brings about...
That has also been a feature of this election in Edo State.
Yes.
It has been reduced to personality.
Yes, okay. When you begin to attack yourselves, of course, whether you have told your supporters to go and fight or not, by the time you are attacking your opponent, you already have told them that, look,
that's a signal.
It is a war. So we don't need to pretend about these things. Okay? So, for us to be able to curb electoral violence, as is seen in some other climes, there is nowhere there are no dissidents. It's the mechanisms in place to check the conduct. Of course, I like what my senior brother have just mentioned, the way it used to be. But in present day time, it will not work.
Why so?
Because the position of the law is that it is better for 99 guilty people to go free than for one innocent person to be punished. Okay, so now there are mechanisms, you know, to check, you know, being proactive.
But people often say, it's a good thing you're a lawyer. People often say that.
Yes, is reactive.
Okay, but you propose something more proactive.
Yes, if there is a crime. If there is
I had proposed both.
Let it be done that you're going to respond to that.
If there is a crime, you know, you swoop in and get everybody that are suspects interrogated. Okay? But what we are saying is that there should be no crime in the first place. So how do we do it? I agree with him that the consciousness of Nigerians at whatever level, be them in Edo State or elsewhere, you know, the voters, their consciousness have risen to a pedestal that, you know, it is becoming more difficult for these people that believes in violence to actually execute it to the scale that it used to be. And this came at a price and a cost of continuing education by various stratas. For governments, our governments have not played, I am on public space saying this, our government has not played enough role in educating the citizens. It is private, you know,
efforts
Maybe as ITV has provided this platform for us to talk to the electorate, those that are listening to us. And if they are convinced that what we are saying is right, okay, they imbibe it. And other efforts by civil society groups, private efforts to enlighten people. And we think that the National Orientation Agency or State Orientation Agency should be at the behest of this public enlightenment, okay, that, look, electoral violence does nobody any good. And the people that are perpetrating violence to win elections are desperados who are only out for your resources. They are not, if I want to serve you, why should I kill him to serve you? Okay? Except that I want to collect this your fine suit. And I know that if he is there, he will not allow me to pick it easily.
So you have to find a way to get rid of him.
That is it. So our politicians should imbibe the culture of service.
We're going to talk about that, the rhetorics by politicians. Those have also, as it were, become a very serious source of concern for Nigerians. Even other politicians are now afraid of some other politicians because it will appear we've moved away from the issues about the people, issues about infrastructure, issues about governance that brings value, specific value, to now tussle over personality and so on and so forth. But Fred, more specifically, I want to ask you something about the electorate and the level of awareness and consciousness. Yes, granted, more than ever before, we're seeing people now more interested in going out on that day to cast their votes to, as it were, express their franchise. But I've taken out the last 3 weeks to randomly talk to people about what they will be doing on the 19th of September in Edo State. And most of them tell me, look, I've never been more interested in voting. I want to go out that day to cast my vote. But I'm afraid that there might be outbreak of violence. And these people are hearing things. They are seeing videos all over social media. They're seeing what politicians are saying. They are seeing all of the shooting. They're seeing all of the attacks and so on and so forth. Are we in a good place?
Yes, I'll tell you that for many, it's a source of concern, and legitimately so. However, we also understand that if we succumb to the threats of those who are threatening, then we stand to lose more. So we cannot afford to be intimidated.
So how do we push back?
So the pushback is to resolutely go out there and cast your votes for the candidate that you believe is going to serve you better. The problem, like he has said, one of the problems we actually have that has made violence to thrive is that there are no consequences for violence. There must be consequences not just at the lower level for those that are pawns in the game, but consequences also for the sponsors of violence, be they direct sponsors or backseat sponsors. There are many backseat sponsors that are known. So those ones should be on the watch list of the armed forces, the police. Okay? And I believe many of them are. And that is why I must commend the police for inviting some of those who have been threatening fire and brimstone to let them know that they are on their watch list and they are not going to tolerate violence during the upcoming election. So that is heartwarming. That gives me more confidence to want to go out there and cast my vote, because I know that should those people do that, they are on the watch list of the police and the police is being proactive about it. But then we need to be creative in how we plan against violence in such exercises. One of the things we could do is to limit movement before the elections and allow a little space. I'll say, for example, we could have a curfew on the night, on the eve of the election, up to 6 or 7 a.m. Most people don't go to election stations, the polling stations, until 9 o'clock. 2 hours is more than enough to get to any such destinations, because everybody votes in close proximity to where they live.
Yes.
Okay, within their wards. So, if you have a curfew from 10 or 8 o'clock the previous night up to 7 a.m., allowing only those who are engaged in essential services and emergency responders freedom or permission to, to move around, then that will greatly curtail the propensity for violence. Then too, we thank God for the road network we have in the state, okay? But we do have major arteries, which you cannot avoid. So if those major arteries are well policed, then the violence will be immediately localized, and once it is localized, it becomes easier to diffuse. So we need to be creative in how we are going to police the system. And I believe that the police force is being proactive. I want to say this. We must realize that the police force we used to have is evolving. Yeah. It's not the police force we have now.
For the better, you mean?
Yeah. Yes, because there's nobody above the position of a commissioner or maybe a superintendent of police that is not a graduate. So those who are administrators, the managers of the police force, the senior officers of the police force are all graduates. So they are able to see what is going on. The two main groups we are looking at, or to look at, are the gangs. Gangs of partially educated people, and the cults. Cultists who went to university like them. So some of the police management officers, okay, that's the senior officers of the police force, were in school with some of these cultists. So they understand how the cults, how they operate. The essence of education is to be able to identify problems and solve them. And with the caliber of police we have now, we should take confidence in their ability to solve this problem, to identify these problems, and to solve them. And we need to lend support to them. But they need to do something in return. And that is protect the identities of people who give them information.
Without compromise.
Without compromise. I foresee a situation when we will begin to have police officers who will say, look, this is a respectable and noble service. And I want to enjoy the nobility and the respectability of this service that I am providing. And I want it to permeate down the line. And so, I want to re-educate, I want to reorient my officers down in the ranks and the file. And so, we begin to introduce police reforms. We have been talking about state police, and I will commend this administration for approving some and encouraging and now conceding
the federal government.
Yes, the federal government conceding to have community policing. That is actually where policing is most needed, most effective, at the local level, at the ward level, at the community level. And that is what they have in the United States and in many advanced nations. But the one thing they have in addition to that is professional policing. Professional policing, it is that system whereby you go and you enroll into an institution to be a security agent, a police, and you are trained as a policeman. And then you take your certificate and you go to wherever you want to work as a police officer, and you seek employment and you are engaged. It's not the system that we are practicing now, where there are centralized police colleges and then you deploy people to wherever you want them to go. No. You will sponsor yourself, but it's usually on scholarship. Those who enroll, like enlist in the military, then you are trained as a security officer. And that is why those who are able to perform, police officers who perform, police chiefs who perform, can take their performance and shop it around the states that are willing to pay them well to provide the same service.
So it becomes competitive?
So it becomes
it stays professional?
Yeah, it stays professional. So that is what we should be looking at, okay? That is in the long run. But to talk about the very situation we have on our hands right now, which we want to address, I've talked about being creative in how to plan to police the
elections
system.
in particular.
Then we have to also give a bite to the consequences. Okay, if we really make sure that those who are perpetrators suffer for what they have done, then it will reduce it. There's no how. I'll tell you, look, I might be using an extreme example here, which will not exactly fit, but I'll tell you what it was. When the military took over for the first time and we had our first military administrator in the person of then Colonel or Lieutenant Colonel Samuel Usaibovo Bemudia, who retired as a brigadier general, okay, and the military governor here. What he did was those that were known to perpetrate violence, who were engaged in burglaries and all sorts, they were fished out, and those that were found culpable were sentenced to death. There was a public execution at Ring Road. There was one at Ekewan Barracks. There was another one at Buba Hill. And after that, I'll tell you, the spate of criminality reduced so significantly that we were youths at the time. We could walk the streets of this city as late as 2 a.m. and 3 a.m. and fear no molestation from anybody or fear any kind of attack. That's how safe this city was, you know. But today, that's not the situation, because I will say, to a great extent, the police too is handicapped, because those who are supposed to fund the police and those who are supposed to assist the police, I'm talking of the elected class now, okay, are those now sponsoring the violence.
We have a lot to talk about along that line, the conspiracy of politicians. Yes. How politicians are said to also be collaborating with thugs and criminal elements in society, yes, especially towards elections. But let me just let our viewers know that we'll be taking your calls now. The number will be on the screen in a bit, and just put those calls through. But please be sure to turn down the audio on your TV set, and then more importantly, stay on the issues. No need to cast aspersions on individuals or institutions. We just want to talk about ways we can fight off or ward off violence, particularly with regards to the 2020 Guba elections in our dear state of Edo. Yesterday, the Benin Monarch, His Royal Majesty Omonoban Edo, called a meeting that some person said, look, there was no better time to have this kind of meeting with the stakeholders, including the APC and the PDP candidates, and then, of course, their party leaders at that meeting. And he told them, he said, look, there's an example. Sorry?
That's the one where INEC was present?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
You said there's an example from 2015, and he mentioned Dr. Goodluck Jonathan, how that the man took personal responsibility to be sure that there was no breakdown of peace, of law and order, there was no breach of the peace, and so on and so forth. And he said, you can take a cue from that. Yeah. You do not need to confuse members of the public, all right? These rhetorics about thugs being imported, arms proliferation, all because of EDO 2020, are totally uncalled for.
Unnecessary.
Yes. We've seen politicians sign undertaking in this country to say, look, we'll ensure there will be peace before, during, and after elections. That principle is brilliant, but what has the practice been, really?
Yeah. Well, you see, this is where we talk about institutions, okay? Because no matter how concerned a person is, you know, we know that the working of the mind itself is something that nobody can guarantee where it goes, okay? So you can say something in the public, and behind you are doing something that is totally opposite of what you have signed onto. And we have seen it happen severally. Peace accords
Hypocritical.
had been signed severally by politicians across Nigeria, and we see how those peace accords are.
Let's take this contribution quickly so you can continue. Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, welcome to the program. Your name and location quickly.
I'm picking my call. My name is Fred.
Okay, great. Welcome to the show.
I want to first of all thank Barrister Chiman and senior uncle that did it with you.
Okay.
And for the first time, we have not heard anybody blaming this party or that party. At least once in a while, it's good like this. But I've often said that the governor or the aspirant of another party cannot come out openly and say that I'm asking my boys to go do violence. But it is your attitude, the way you pass information, the way you talk to them, you see some those statements coming out from them is enough to cause violence. And if you notice, the violence is the process which you can change somebody or you don't want somebody to come. But unfortunately, I've often said that it is not the youth that actually causes violence, but unfortunately, the youth are giving themselves to violence. For example, I'm in this state. Nobody has ever given me money from 1999 to vote. I have always cast my vote who I want to vote for. I know in course of analyzing this issue on social media, you make some certain statements, some people call you good. So my response to them is that, one thing you cannot change for me, you can insult me, but you can never change my mind concerning who I'm going to vote for. And sometimes I ended up quoting some scriptures today that some of them have come back to say, I'm very sorry. Because you think that everybody that is against a particular candidate has a problem, or when you are against a particular candidate, you have a problem. So I think that going forward, let's look for a way to ensure that we're actually not at war. Because you need the state, first of all, before you can become a governor or anything you want to become. Without the state, you cannot be what you want to be. So let us stress ourselves. I want to encourage our youth or anybody that are supporting any candidate. Remember, you can't find those candidates' children in the front. You can't find them that they're the ones talking like you will find like Obama with his daughter. You find Donald Trump with his daughter. But you can't find that here. We don't even know who their children are or where they.
Somebody said coronavirus trapped them abroad. That's why they couldn't fly back into the country.
No, that's not true. That's not true. I think if you notice the first election that brought Donald Trump, his daughter was doing her own campaign after his father's threat, after his father's environment. So if we can see that, you see that it's not a matter of, you are my brother or you are my father, because at the time they want to give whoever wants to certificate, you will find out that all those boys that were tagging thugs and all that will not even be there to take that paper. They will only come to the ring road and begin to dance. Then when they are going to take champagne, red one and all that, those boys are not there. So let us trace carefully, because at the end of the day, you either say, I'm grateful to God that I was part of this process that brought this man, or I cast my vote for the other person and those didn't win. That for you not to because of what you want and begin to do things that is not needful. It's against the law, it's against the natural act, it's against God, and it's against humanity. Thank you. Good morning.
Thank you. Good morning to you, Sonny, for that brilliant contribution. A lot of persons have said politicians are smart enough to ensure that their children are not caught in crossfire during elections. Exactly. Just one more call before we get back to you, gentlemen. Okay. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Yeah, welcome to the program. Let me have your name and your location quickly, please.
Yeah, my name is Comrade Abi. I'm calling from Olea.
Abi, thank you for joining us.
The truth of the matter is that it's just unfortunate these politicians, our youths cannot learn. You understand? Look at what the last caller just said. They have said it all. You can never find any of their children. And the crisis that is happening now, their children, their relatives, they are not among. You understand? If you know you want to lead, a good leader must surely lead by example. So my advice to the youth, they should not allow themselves to be used by these selfish politicians. Thank you very much.
No, thank you too, Abe. You enjoy the rest of your day. So you are going to make a point.
You see, these two callers just took the words out of my mouth because that was going to be my next point.
The politicians' children are not involved in the process.
Exactly. You see, I'll tell you a story, and I'll make it very short. You see, when the Civil War started back in 1967, and they began to draft people into the war, I was young. I was maybe about 8 years old, okay? But I had the mindset that nobody was going to be able to recruit me if I was of age, if their children and their relatives are not fighting by my side. Even at that young age, I knew that you are not going to make me to fight to settle your scores. So people who do not have vision, people who do not have ideas, people who do not have solutions to societal problems, they engage in fisticuffs and all kinds of violence, okay, trying to force their ideas on everybody. That is why democracy is so beautiful. If you have brilliant ideas and you are so convinced, you are so sure of the brilliance of your ideas, go out to the field, participate in the process, and convince the people. If you are the one, then the people will vote for you. The thing is this: anybody who is very confident that he can win this election will not resort to violence. The person would be glad for the election to roll around so that he can be vindicated, so the people can prove that, yes, I would believe in it. They can express their confidence in the person, in the candidate. But those who believe that they do not stand a chance to win are the ones who take desperate measures to try to upstage the fairness of the process. And that is what you and I and everybody must kick against.
Just before we take I'm going to come back to you, Fred. Just before we take more calls. Chima, you were talking about how the politicians must be held to account as far as violence during elections is concerned. And then we were talking about the need to move beyond the peace accord.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So, as we have seen it, that peace accords have been signed and broken at will. I think that for me, it is self-deceit to begin to talk about all these peace accords. Okay? Now, for instance, I would have expected the Omonoba, who I respect highly, because once he makes a pronouncement, I know that the gods of the land and God Almighty hears, because he is unbiased. After they have made all the commitments, because this is where, you know, we miss it all out. There are no.
I'm hoping you are not going to where you are going.
No. That's where I am going to, because somebody said.
You think they should have taken an oath right there?
He doesn't need to ask them to take an oath. He should have made a pronouncement. If you go against this accord, I pronounce that this will happen to you.
Is it not possible they could have done that off the records, for example?
Well, it is not off the records.
If
he had admonished them on record, he should have pronounced that
on record.
Because once the Oba says it, I know that everybody in Edo State will be scared of going against the Oba's public pronouncement. Okay? That is a deterrent measure. Okay? So, if we look beyond this accord to say, okay, if you flout this accord, or if this accord is flouted, not even if you, because nobody knows who will flout it, but it has always been on record that all the parties flout it, not even one person.
At least to different degrees.
Yes, to different degrees. So no matter, for me, no matter the degree you flout it, he who comes to equity must come with clean hands.
Right.
Once your hand is soiled, it doesn't matter the extent of the oil that is on your hand. Your hand is soiled, your hand is dirty. Okay, so that will begin to check on some of these excesses. If we say, well, we don't need any peace accord, police, you know, like, I agree with him totally. The police of today is instilling confidence in the citizenry. Of course, there is no perfect institution anywhere in the world. There is no perfect institution. But once you can give an institution 60% and above, it means that it is performing and there is room for improvement.
All right, let's take advantage of that room now to take a call quickly. Hello, good morning. Welcome to the program.
Good morning.
Yes, good to have you on the show. By all means, go ahead.
Hello?
Hello, good morning. We can hear you all right. Just go ahead and make your contribution.
Okay. Yesterday the Monaba called both the major parties for the peace accord. Can you hear me?
We're hearing you all right. Just go ahead and talk to us.
Yeah, so that peace accord, we should emphasize on it so that both parties will follow the rules of that peace accord. It has never been done in the history of Edo State before. This is the first time that the Monaba has called for a peace accord among two major parties. So we should play towards that gallery, that they must honor the accord that have entered already. The panel, the major gladiators were there. And if you look at this election or the campaign, violence has not really taken place in Edo South or Edo Central. It is the smallest place.
Please, we warned earlier about this name calling. Please, can we stay with the issue? You are not a court of law. To the best of my knowledge, you are not a law enforcement officer, and you don't have evidence, so you cannot substantiate what you are advancing right now. Please stay with the issues.
Edo North is the major place that violence has grown up. Several trainings around the whole state and the whole country as if the whole Edo is one. If you go to Abuja, people think that Edo State, those people cannot move. It's only a donut, and it's a skirmish of a donut that is not well. So let us emphasize on how to make peace. Talk to the police and generally on deterrent is fast, deterrent works. When you give people deterrent now, caution people not to follow people that are prone with violence. They will get discriminate.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Let's take a few more calls now, just before we get back to this gentleman with me in the studio, and then we'll wrap it up with this discussion. Hello, good morning. Hello, good morning. Okay, we lost that call. Please just be sure you turn down the audio on your television sets before you make that call, so we don't have feedback problem with the conversation. Hello, good morning.
Yeah, good morning. This is
all right, go ahead.
Yeah, please, my contribution is simple. I think the two major actors should be called to order. They should call the two major political parties to order, like what Omogo did. He called the two parties to order. My major problem with them is that politicians in this class, they are too desperate. They are just too desperate. Politicians in the past, they've conducted elections and they lose. Politicians have also been impeached. So I don't know what their desperation is really about.
All right, thank you very much. I think you probably don't want to know, but the important thing is that we ensure that this desperation does not cascade into violence that rubs off negatively on the social and economic life in our state. All right, last call on the show this morning. Hello, good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Yeah, welcome to TMI.
Yeah, thank you. Can I speak now?
By all means, go ahead. Stay on the issues.
Hello?
I can hear you all right. Just go ahead and talk. Okay, I think we're having issues with that call. But let me get back to this gentleman. I've heard people say we have so much of money in the polity. Yes. We have so much of money in the system. In fact, people have said if you want to know that there's money in Nigeria, just wait until the next election cycle, whether it is state election like we're having in those states, or it is the general election that we have every other 4 years, for example, across the country. Isn't it also smart for us to, at this point, say, how do we de-emphasize money? But some persons say it's a dilemma to say, let's de-emphasize the place of money, because democracy requires a lot of money. People have to campaign, people have to pay for several things. I mean, politicians have to even go source for funds from banks, we have heard, in most cases, just to be able to power their campaign initiatives. But then you also need money to pay thugs. You need money to get these arms from wherever you're getting them from. I mean, importing thugs is not just something you do by words. It's something you have to do funding. We hear that you now have contractors who help you get thugs from whatever part of the country.
And help you get and source funds.
Yeah, exactly. You can even specify the
for
kind
political
of
campaign purposes.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. That's what we're saying. So how do how do we fight this off and ensure that, at least by the next 4 years when we're having an election again in this state, we can categorically say it is way better now than we had 4 years ago?
Something we have not given attention to, that we really need to begin to look into, is police independence. The police are not independent. It's the independence of police that will bring impartiality to the system. Okay, the police right now, they are handicapped. Whenever they arrest somebody, they arrest a culprit from who are loyal to the powers that be, then they cannot even be sure to be able to continue with the process to prosecute these individuals because of the law. So the way to stop that is to give more ability in the police, all of the police. So we advance of this. You don't have to lose private security systems. Okay, that reliable 6 to security those that are engaged in security systems who already have good reputation.
Because we're out time already. This is another so welcome on this legal go forward. To organize.
Okay, I'm not talk about money election. I think one thing that can be a game changer will be stipulating INEC and getting our laws is slim. Our amount can trace to a politician that party. Because if you say person, then yes, political party, and that means party. Okay, I the way that is being raised in all kinds. You see, Donald Trump has reached this. He has to go out to deference to elections. Take on to every hand.
And it's also elections. Actually, it's like 14 days, 15 days now. This is my observation. Again, on your opposition to talk about elections. But actually, when you say
Thank you very much.
this will be this discussion.